How do you sort out the so-called jargon from real-world practices that work? Do the members of your organization find some business or technology advice utterly confusing? Welcome to Real Talk with Sam Holcman. In this program, we set the record straight, and in terms that business people and technology people can understand. Now, here is your host, Sam Holcman.
Welcome to this edition of Real Talk. I'm Sam Holcman, and the topic for today is, I guess the easiest way to put it is the concept of best practices and what we see on the internet. And this actually comes from one of our clients that was asking a question about what they're actually seeing on the internet when it comes to best practices, and more directly to us, what value could we possibly provide when all of the best practices are on the internet? Please notice that I was chuckling a little bit about that. I'm not sure if that's a common myth or something that is believed by people or expected. I'm not really sure. But this particular group was in the financial services sector, and they said they should be able to get an agile framework, an agile methodology, value streams, implementation details, et cetera, just by looking at the internet. And they, for some reason, said, we're doing that, but we also like to, find out what you have. I want to stress again that they are a client of ours. So I was a little perplexed by this. And so I said, you know what, let me try this for a moment. Let me try to explain what people are actually seeing on the internet. And this is just for reference. This has nothing to do with us or, frankly, anyone else or anything that you are reading on the internet, especially now with the concepts of artificial intelligence approaching that same set of information, data, whatever you want to call it, that's on the internet. So I said directly, and we had a nice video conferencing situation here. I said, let's make sure that we understand that the internet does not have best practices. And I repeated, I says, let's make sure we understand the internet does not have best practices. The internet has published practices. Published practices. Best practices cost money. I mean, as bluntly and unfortunately as directly as I could make it, they cost money. And they're proprietary. There is no one that will provide their frameworks or value streams or implementation details in the public domain, or provide those to others to republish. That's just a myth that some believe or want to believe. Now here's where I continued. I says, let's think about this for just a moment. Think about your own organization, the organization you're working for, or the organization you're with. Or let's say, for example, that you have been working in an area that you are the expert in that area. Would you want your best practices to be provided to others or on the internet to be reused? You spent all of this money generating this intellectual property and capital and competitive advantage. Well, it doesn't make any sense when you think about it that way. So it takes work to build best practices, not necessarily hard work, just work, not scraping the internet or looking things up there. Because again, the key thing that we should remember is these are best practices. And it really doesn't help if someone fools us or we fool ourselves in relying on the internet or the interpretation of the internet through, for example, artificial intelligence, to provide real best practice information. It's just not there. And so if nothing else makes sense, I hope the sheer logic of what I'm presenting here makes sense to you. Coming full circle. Best practices are proprietary. Best practices have cost money to generate. And you as the customer or you as the consumer would not expect your best practices to be on the internet at no cost or given to anybody else by any means. And of course, we shouldn't expect that from others. I hope this clears up the concept of best practices versus published practices in relation to the internet and artificial intelligence. Until next time, stay well, stay healthy.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Talk. Be sure to join your host, Sam Holcman, again for another edition of our program. We'll have more real topics of discussion then.